right, welcome back. My name's Adrian.
My name's Aaron.
And this is 2teachone.
2teachone.
The podcast where we try and take seemingly complicated topics and make them a little bit more simple, digestible.
Yeah.
If you haven't listened to us before, welcome. We've been doing this now since January, and we're really liking it, and we have all plans to continue to do this. We've gotten some good feedback.
Yeah.
Let me see. What have we been up to? I mean, 4th of July has happened.
Right. Yeah. 4th of July happened. We had a nice cookout. It was a lot of fun.
That was very nice. You know, we decided to spend some time with some of the people that are usually around us. Some friends, some just acquaintances, but yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah. Burgers, hot dogs.
Yep.
Lawn games.
That's right.
I think it was hilarious because that one game that we had,
Bottle Bash,
yeah, was definitely made by people probably inebriated on a beach who were like, hey, my dad has a toy company. This is the best game ever. And Bottle Bash was born. And it is fun.
Or it was like Uncle Jim or someone. Yeah, they were like, dude, Uncle Jim makes toys. We need to do this. And you know what? One of the reasons I got that was because it's so much fun. It's easy to set up.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, how much could it possibly cost to produce that game? It's a Frisbee and like 2 plastic poles and a plastic bottle.
Yeah. For those of you who have never had the pleasure of playing Bottle Bash, you have a pole in the ground, a plastic bottle that's shaped like a Coca-Cola bottle, right? You set the Coca-Cola bottle on the plastic stick that's in the ground, and then you throw a Frisbee at it. There's 2 of them, and
40
teams.
feet. 40 feet is the standard
which is more difficult
distance
than you'd think, to throw a Frisbee and hit a bottle on a stick at 40 feet.
No, you just have to get calibrated and stuff. Or your name just has to start with an R.
Yeah.
And you're good at everything.
That's true. He's good at every game.
Yeah. So anyway, that was what we did that day.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Man, we've been dealing with the heat. That's another thing that's, happened recently. I've just about had it already.
It's been incredibly hot.
It's the middle of July now. Thank God, because I don't know how much more of this I can take.
Well, we got, 2 or 3 more months, and then
Great.
It'll snow.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks. In my mind, I had started lying to myself about how much shorter that time is, but we're going to have to deal with this. Jacob's back in the studio with us. He's actually going to be a part of this episode. What's up, Jacob?
What's up, man?
Man, chilling. So, what did you do on 4th?
Very little. Tried to stay out of other people's way.
That's the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure. And, alcohol and explosives.
What do you mean? They go perfectly together.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Although, I've always really wanted to know somebody named Lefty. I don't actually want to witness it happening, so.
No.
Not as far as you know, anyway.
I mean, it's an easy way to ruin your day. I mean, not as much as the person who loses the limb, but no, let's just be honest. It'll mess up my day too if I have to see that. So, recap of what we talked about last time. So we were with Jacob last time for episode number 14.
Right.
We talked about alternative spirituality, and in relation to the 12 steps, and the 12-step community and what that looks like. It was a really, really great conversation. I think it was our best, episode yet.
Yeah, it was fascinating.
Yeah.
I thought we had a really good discussion. That we went at it in a way that didn't alienate anybody.
Yeah.
And it was accessible to people in and out of recovery. So you don't have to be in recovery to think about spirituality. And if you are in recovery, it comes with the territory, and an honest discussion about it, I think, is a good idea, especially for people who struggle with it. And there's quite a few.
True. True. Yeah, a lot of people do. So what do we talk about today?
So today we're going to talk about working out, right? Working out as it affects recovery, as our personal journeys. So each one of us really pays attention to our physical health these days in a way that was probably inconceivable when we were using. And we all do it a little bit differently, and yet it works for each one of us. And I think it's a good model for people in general that they can find their own path. And so we're going to talk a little bit about ours and hopefully help some people find theirs.
Yeah, definitely. And just to be clear, recovery is something we mentioned because that's, something that's, quite significant in our lives.
Sure.
But this topic doesn't necessarily have anything to do with that. For us, it does, because that's, something that we're, that's happening in our lives,
Yeah.
But for anyone else, maybe you can pick up some tips on how to kind of approach, a fitness lifestyle, how, it could possibly be integrated into, your self-care regimen, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because that's how we've implemented it, in some of our lives, all a little bit differently.
And I think, it doesn't necessarily have to be coming from a place of recovery from addiction. You could just, not really be working out and kind of want to get into it. And how you start that, what it's going to look like, our stories might help elucidate that for you.
Right. So kind of a realistic, our experience, just the real of what it was like for us. Because last time I checked, I haven't really seen that article in Men's Health. Usually it's like, 6-pack in 6 days.
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk a little bit about that, right?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, I think it's cool because the aspect of recovery is we started from zero, right? So just like anybody who'd been sitting in their armchair for, an indeterminate amount of time and then decide to start, that's kind of where you are.
Right. When
your body is, beaten down and broken by addiction. So it's from that angle, I think just about everybody can understand starting.
Oh yeah. It's totally, it's a journey in of its own.
Yeah.
So I guess a good place to start, is how things were. What's the genesis, right? And, I'll just go ahead and start and talk about what, it was for me. Getting into fitness wasn't, or just basically, integrating exercise into my life was kind of an uphill battle, which is surprising because in the beginning, back when I was a kid, ever since I've been, play school. I mean, I've always been pretty active. There weren't any real organized sports at that level, but ever since going forward, I've been involved in karate and field hockey, volleyball, soccer, basketball. Basketball was the sport I played the most. And so in one way or the other, I was always involved in some kind of, team sports, exercise, that kind of thing. I was even in the scouts. And some of that was because I grew up in a single parent home. And so, mom's just trying to figure out, how she can get some mom time, and perhaps, get me out there to socialize with some other people, other kids. I also had a YMCA, kind of mentor. His name was Amos. He used to teach us swimming. He was, a swimming class, instructor. Side note. That was the first time. I remember one of his classes was the first time I actually thought I was going to die. I started drowning. Oh. I was, holding the side of the pool, doing the, kick your legs type of thing. Very young, just learning how to swim. Let go of the wall. And I was pretty sure that was it. Gulped a couple gulps of pool water. Really get the stomach hurting.
Bleachy.
Oh yeah, so good. It's just burning my nostrils so badly. But anyway, so that just kind of stands out. But I've always had a history of being active in one way or the other. So, but that as we're gonna tell here soon, that didn't really inform the next step, because at some point, once I was out of high school, I didn't play college sports. Truth of the matter is, I'm a college dropout.
Hey, me too.
And
what's up,
Jacob?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Very nice.
Cool. But but anyway, so yeah, I mean, once I was out of high school, I didn't have coaches and nutritionists and all these people. They used to do all of these things ahead of time for us and just kind of guide us, right? It was just me. At the gym. And, so we'll talk a little bit about that. What was your beginning like?
Well, mine was a little bit different. It's kind of interesting because we're both from single parent homes.
Yeah.
But the tradition that my mom grew up in, physical exercise, sports were considered a luxury. They weren't considered like something to be taken seriously.
Right.
And so because of that, I played a little bit of soccer when I was, I'm going to say like 5 to 7. And I was in the Boy Scouts for a little while. But other than that, that was kind of it. I played on the tennis team. Well, I got accepted to the tennis team in 7th grade, but I was in band. And my mom really focused on my musical education. Mm. So the two conflicted, so tennis had to go, right? And it's just kind of an interesting thing. So nobody taught me how to play any sports. Nobody showed me how to throw a football. I mean, they were, or a baseball. I remember actually going to my junior high library.
Right.
in like 7th grade because I was tired of getting made fun of because I couldn't throw a baseball correctly. And I was like, there's a book on this somewhere. And sure enough, there's a book. And it like went step by step. This is how you throw this, and this is how you throw this, and this is how you throw this. And so I studied it, practiced it, and, then I could throw a baseball. And I think that kind of, set the stage for how I would approach, physical fitness later, which is definitely, on my own, right? So I always hesitate, like there were no coaches. I didn't play. I was like 4'0" in 7th grade. I remember I actually signed up to play football.
Yeah.
And my mom came behind me and was like, and she, changed we had these little cards you had to fill out at the end of 6th grade and turn them in to tell you what classes you were going to be in 7th grade because it was a junior high. So that was when you changed schools.
Yeah.
And she literally changed the card so that I was in PE instead of football. And I mean, I guess I could have changed it, but I just didn't. So I never played football in school. I was never in any organized team sports except for like I made the tennis team that one time. So I played a little bit of tennis.
Yeah.
But that was really it. So athletics were just not focused on. Like it just wasn't a big deal.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think it comes back to my grandmother who had a problem with the coaches in my uncle's lives when they were in school. And so because of that, they just didn't trust any coach, period. It was interesting.
Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff, man.
Yeah.
What about you, Jacob?
So my beginnings are, I think, probably similar to you guys'. Predominantly a single parent home. So my childhood was one of those where once school was out, I literally just pretty much wasn't allowed in the house.
Okay.
So you get to doing some stuff,
Right.
And I took up skateboard. I essentially treated my body like an amusement park for much of my life.
Okay.
Skateboarding, snowboarding were the things that I was really good at. In fact, at one point, I thought I might even be a professional skateboarder. At least those were the dreams. But
yeah.
And as far as school goes, organized sports, I did soccer, baseball for a short amount of time, but soccer was the mainstay from middle school to high school, and then even like summer leagues, city teams and stuff.
Right.
I was a pretty little fella, and so I didn't get into the full contact sports and stuff like that. I didn't really even reach my size height wise that I am now until I was late in high school. I was a pretty little guy the whole time. Late bloomer, I guess you'd say.
Okay.
Yeah. But it became pretty important to me. I didn't, when I said we weren't allowed in the house,
Right.
mom went to work in the morning and we just found stuff to do for the entire day, for the entire summer,
Right.
But I was also very influenced by my mother because she is super athletic, super active.
Yeah.
Much of my childhood was spent screwing around behind various gyms while my mom was in these organized volleyball leagues. And she also played a lot of racquetball, and we were too little to be staying home by ourselves. So she just kind of drug us along to those. And for a good portion of my high school years, might have been a little earlier than high school, but right around that time, she was actually riding her bicycle to work and back. And we're talking a lot of miles. At the time, she worked up at the edge of the foothills at Martin Marietta, and from our house, it was a long ride. I mean, she would, leave at like 5 a.m. This was voluntary, I might add. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
So I think that played a part in my, pursuing athletic endeavors.
Right.
And I think being pretty athletic, like being good at them. I was pretty good at soccer, although I never stuck it out enough to, I wasn't like varsity or anything like that. I didn't go on to pursue that. But I was pretty good at skateboarding, and anything that really took some sort of, coordination, I'm pretty good at. So, yeah.
Okay. Shoot. Yeah, that's interesting because now that I'm thinking about it, I kind of had more and more as time goes by, I realized that I was definitely in a position, I was privileged. I grew up pretty privileged, right? So one side of my family was what you could consider like the closest thing to like middle class at that point. I mean, my grandpa used to work for the railway, right? And that was a pretty damn good job to have, you know, back when they were getting their start. And the other side of my family is quite, you know, my grandpa on that side, he did well. He did well. Let's just say that. Anyway, so, I mean, I used to end up at sports clubs and stuff. Cause like my parents, I mean, there's no one, sports wasn't like that important, right? The only reason I was really exposed to any of that stuff was because of school for the most part. And then from there, I realized that, and the reason I brought up privilege is because, you know, on the weekends, right, we used to have memberships to these, like clubs, like sports clubs, right? You know, it's kind of like going to the, you know, what's that one? The Cherry Creek, the members club.
Right. The Cherry Creek Golf Club or the Four
Country
Seasons
Club.
Yeah.
The country club. Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, we'd go and play tennis and, you know, stuff like that. You know, it was also, that's how, you know, the parents would get some time to do their own thing, you know, to take us to the pool or let us run off and do our thing. But anyway, so that was then. More recently, and, you know, what happened was, so 2013, I get into rehab, right? And do the whole thing. And at some point I end up being, I start working at the place that we work at now, the organization. I think it was that first year of employment that, I mean, I don't know what to credit that to, but I was just not, it's like I didn't know what to do with my time. I was still trying to break the previous habits that I had, which when I was, you know, just drinking and stuff, I mean, I was isolating, watching movies, getting, you know, toasted and, you know, occasionally leaving and stuff, but some of that stuff still hadn't been really broken. And plus, you know, being in the program was very, very intense, right? We didn't get a lot of time. The opportunity to just kind of like hang out wasn't there, just on the weekends sometimes. And, you know, as Jacob can attest, I was working my ass off to pay myself, to pay my way through the whole thing. I didn't get done paying for everything until like maybe, you know, a few weeks after I'd been, you know, hired on. And so, yeah, I spent a year just kind of like hanging out on the Haagen-Dazs diet, you know, watching movies, man, just kind of, you know, cooped up. And I go to the doctors one day and I told this story in, you know, episode number 2.
Yes.
Which, if you'd like to, listen to that, you can do so at our website, which is www.2teachone.com. That's www.2teach1.com. That's 2teachone.com.
To teach one.
And, yeah, so you definitely check out, the episodes there or on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. So yeah, you know, I go to my yearly checkup, right? And the doctor looks at me and he goes, hey, Adrian, have you put on some weight, man?
Damn.
And I'm like, oh, you know, I come up on a couple pounds, man. You know? he goes, nah, you put on some weight, man. And dude, I put on a lot of weight. I was at 245 pounds. And, you know, they decided to do blood work. Blood work came back. He was like, dude, you're pre-diabetic. And if you don't do something about that now, you know, you're going to be a type 2 diabetic. And, you know, we always talk about this. Whatever your motivation is, right? Your motivation can change, right? Use whatever you have at the time, and that can change. So my motivation was not having to use needles all the time. I was like, nah. I'm not about that needle life, man. And so for me, that was enough to just get out of that doctor's appointment in the heat, man. I remember it was hot as hell. Walked from Stout Street straight to 20th Street.
20th Street.
Rec Center. Okay. That was where, that was the day it all began. So I just walked in there and the people there have always been super supportive. I don't even know if I'd been in there before that. But I just went in, talked to them. I was like, yo, so, you know, I need a membership. I paid for a year.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like you.
I knew that this was not just going to, there was no magic.
Yeah. Once you made a decision.
Yeah. No, there was some definite suffering. Because I think I tried to like work out, but I did it, you know, at the Phoenix. And one thing I know by myself is if I'm that close to my bed, it's like I can hear it whispering. And it really messes with my intensity and focus. So yeah, so that's how that happened. So I went in there, talked to them. They gave me a tour, got all the information, and I started working out. immediately. Thing is, I didn't foresee not having coaches and all these people that, acted as, guides being such an issue. I wasn't a self-starter like this guy. This guy read books. All right. So every part of the process for him was, I'm going to do this. Let me go and, figure out how to do this. Right. For me, it was just something I started doing, it was social. You know what I'm saying? As a kid, it was social. Mm-hmm. I got to run. I had a lot of energy. So, I was like, cool. Like, this girls, please.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, yeah, this is cool. It has all these things that I like. But now it was just me, overweight. Yeah, I'm in the gym. Things are familiar, but I just don't know what I'm doing necessarily, right? And so I was just kind of lost. So I started doing the free classes. The good thing about getting the membership is you get access to all the free classes. Mm-hmm. Dude, went into the first one, almost died. I mean, I thought I was dying that day. By the next day, I was certain that death was, coming around the corner, dude.
Yeah, imminent. Yeah.
It was imminent, man. I was hurting so bad.
Tell my mom I love her.
Oh, dude, I was in so much pain.
Like eating cereal without like extending your arm.
Dude, brushing my teeth, like washing my face, like my hands. Oh my God, I was so sore.
Yeah.
And just like a lot of people at that point, right? See, unless you've like gone through the journey, right? You don't know that you have like a week, right? To a week or two until you either get used to the pain or it stops hurting as much, right?
Yeah.
Because you've consistently been going in. And that looks different for all kinds of different people, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of how that all, got started. If I'm going to talk about anything important that I learned, in that process, cause nothing really changed that much except for, okay, so there's a few things. There's a milestone. It wasn't a good one. So I get into doing these free classes and that's going well. The first one I did was a HIIT class. It was one of those like in the fitness studio with the trainers in there just barking at you. So that was great. Got through that, it was super intense. Then I started doing lose weight, training, like the circuit thing.
Oh, yeah.
And that was great. Cause that was a little bit more familiar because the most recent thing I did was train to be on the football team. And so, yeah, weight room, cool. So I did that. Then I decided, okay, cool. I'm feeling a lot more confident. I've been doing some research, reading some things. Let me get into this on my own. I started doing that. Let's just say I was a little bit too confident because I think 2 weeks into going off on my own, dude, jacked myself up, man. And the problem about injury is that you don't know, at least for me, in the experiences that I've had, what happened was I'd go, work out, decide to push myself a bit, maybe go a little bit too far, right? Like to the point where if you can't like do the movements, right, with control, you too much weight, and that's like one of the things people like, really mess up on, right?
Yes.
So, so I go in, I work out and I'm feeling cool. I'm like, oh man, great workout. Dude, it wasn't until like a couple days after that I started suspecting something was wrong, man. Because there was just light things, when I moved a certain way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then I realized, it didn't take long until I realized, yep, shoulder injury, bud. And then I realized how bad that was because I couldn't, you don't know how bad, especially like a shoulder injury is until you're in that spot, right? Because you don't realize how many exercises like activate those muscles.
Not even just exercise, just movement.
Normal stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it was so painful. And at some point it really started to like mess with me psychologically, right? Because I want to go to the gym and have a good workout, right? But at every turn, it was a problem. The shoulder injury was an issue, right? Because I mean, if I'm doing upper body stuff, unless I'm doing crunches,
right,
there's so many things I have to use my hands for and like, lift things. And yeah, it was really, really, really bad. So anyway, that was that was the first milestone. So yeah, so I get that injury. From then on, if I'm going to really give anyone, some pointers and talk about some of the things that, were really important is the importance of, I guess, trying to pay attention. Like, some people like take notes, right? I never really did that kind of a thing. I was more of trying to make sure that I showed up, to the gym, right? But at some point it wasn't just about showing up to the gym because there's other parts to it, right? You have to be eating well and you have to be sleeping well too. Like if you do all of those things right, you'll really, really see some like significant, changes. But that discipline to do all of those things, then it's not just discipline, right? There's all these things going on in our lives like work. Like right now, sleeping is the one thing that I have it controlled to a certain point, right? Because my body's now used to going to bed at midnight. I wake up at about 5:30 most days, right? Then on the days I'm off, I get to sleep in, as much as I want really, right? Which more often than not nowadays that looks like, 9 a.m. I still go to bed about midnight, and I can definitely feel the difference. I have some backlog, because our job is, pretty taxing mentally, not really physically, but that mental fatigue. So the sleep part of things, I can definitely do a little bit better, right? But it's tough because that work component, the schedule change, right? So I have the early days, right?
Right.
So you really don't get into a rhythm. You don't get into like this constant rhythm, and that affects things.
Yeah.
So that's something that's been hard for me, because I'm just kind of a night owl. So that's one thing I definitely, would like to talk about, is this whole trying to figure out like what your pain points are. For me, sleep is definitely one of them. I think honestly, the nutrition thing is something I'm just getting around to a place where I can do things sustainably, because I like food, right? I like flavor. So just eating like bland stuff doesn't work for me. I won't do it sustainably. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Dude, there's just, yeah, dude, it sucks, right? So now I found my way to a place. Actually, it was my doctor. When I went in, he was like, dude, try the Mediterranean diet. And when I looked it up, I was like, the one thing I was like, I don't know about that, is this whole, so Mediterranean diet, the way they used to eat there was like a lot of vegetables. Then meat was actually something they only ate like from time to time, and it was kind of a celebratory thing.
Yeah.
And when they did eat meat, it was, fish, seafood.
Right.
Okay. Because, obviously that's the part of the world they're in,
Yeah. Well, lamb,
a lot of
right?
coast. Well, there's lamb too.
Yeah.
You can do lamb. You can do, they do lamb and fish.
Okay.
Things like beef and other things. They're a lot more rare.
Yeah.
Right. And then the part that I really celebrated was mass amounts of olive oil. I was like, yes, fat son. So happy. Oh man. Cause fat is where like, the flavor lives, right? Cause and I love using my spice rack. So I'm like, yeah, this is awesome. I can do this, and it actually hasn't been that bad.
Yeah. I've seen you do it. It looks very tasty. I haven't seen any gyros yet though, which is really concerning for me. Because when he said Mediterranean diet to me the first time, I thought my mind goes, oh, gyros and lamb kebabs. Yeah. Like, I don't know why. That's where my brain went, And so I'm expecting him to start making this stuff. And
that's American Mediterranean food.
Exactly,
that's
yes.
not even something you would find in the Mediterranean.
Right. Just a bunch of people eating gyros all over.
If you're going to go on vacation there and look for gyros, please write and tell me about how that went.
Yeah. It's like going to Mexico and asking for certain things that are American inventions. Yeah. If you're at a border town, there's tourists that go there and they'll, serve you what you, want, because they'll make money, but they'll just look at you funny like
what?
Man, get the out here, man.
Yeah. It's so true. Well, just a little side note, in Texas, Tex-Mex is big. And so you have a lot of people that think that's Mexican food. We dated a woman who, was from Mexico, or like first generation, and she refused to go to any of those restaurants. It was so funny. The one time she let me take her, she tasted the salsa, and then she told the waiter what to bring her. Please bring me a cutting board and a knife, and she made the salsa right there. It was great.
Right. Yeah.
It's fantastic. So yeah, it is funny though, the idea we have of certain diets. But I know the Mediterranean diet, heavy on vegetables.
Heavy on vegetables, yeah.
And I know it's funny because as Americans, we're used to eating meat like every day. Mm-hmm. But in other parts of the world and at other times, meat was something that you had a couple times a week.
It was a luxury.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in some places it's a luxury. In other places, it wasn't even about that, right? It's just like how they, kind of did things in the Mediterranean. That's just like a way of life. It wasn't necessarily an economics, a type of kind of thing. So, but what I have found, interestingly enough, is I got to a place at some point where I actually thought to myself, maybe, just maybe, I could possibly be a vegetarian.
Because interesting, yeah.
I actually thought about that, because I haven't been eating a lot of meat.
Yeah.
Meat, like seafood. I do, well, okay, so here's the thing. Every time us guys go out, I'll take that opportunity to have, some beef or whatever it is, right? A burger, more specifically. I like that a lot. But other than that, I mean, I've been eating mostly fish. I really wanted something like, something with like that chew, like a bite, right? And I've been trying to do steamed broccoli, just like well steamed, right? So it's not like just limp, right? It's got some good crunch to it. Like, the sweetness comes out of it. It's really, really good. I've got some olive oil in there. I've got my mushrooms. Mushrooms, man. I have been killing the mushroom game.
Yeah, mushrooms are great.
Yeah, Aaron's a fan. Yeah. So, I mean, I just made some soup today that I am so happy about.
Nice.
That's just got all kinds of veggies in it. But anyway, so that was one of my pain points. I wanted to eat healthy. I wanted to have it be sustainable.
Yes.
So I can just happily do it, right? Long term. And that's one of the things I've been able to control. So I'm happiest about that at this point. As far as my progress in getting to a point where I'm proficient with what I'm doing as far as like lifting weights, like my whole thing, that in the very beginning, it was about like looking at men's health and like all those things, those publications and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But then I realized something. I was like, these things are way too, I don't know. It was very clickbaity. Yes. You know what I'm saying? And I was just like, at some point I realized like there's something about this doesn't seem real. Like, yes, if you do some of these things, you can get some gains, right? But again, going back to this whole sustainability thing, right? And so what I did was I kept looking through like, these publications and like specifically Men's Health. They used to have this, they have all these contributors, right? That'll like, work with the magazine to teach you about, doing this kind of workout, compound movements, whatever it is. And that's how I found Jeff Cavalier.
Oh, really? Okay.
So Jeff Cavalier was actually, he contributed for Men's Health or Men's Fitness, one of the two. And so I did that workout that he suggested for like a couple of weeks, and I was like, wow, this is great. And not only was it great, they explained why you were doing those things, right?
Yes.
And for me, I don't know why. I didn't know until then, but I wanted to know that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I like that.
Then I looked him up. I found him on YouTube. And I mean, really the rest is history. I just started following some of the stuff that he suggests. Obviously, you want to cycle off, whatever, workout you're doing. So when I do cycle off, I'll go back to doing, the same thing I used to do, which is, go out and look up a workout that I can do in between, like a 3-week period until I can come back to the original workout, which I do for 12 weeks.
Yeah.
And, that's pretty much sums up what I've been doing this whole time.
I think it's interesting because you found a coach.
Exactly. That's what I wanted.
Yeah.
That was familiar, right?
Right, yeah. And, you went to somebody and you found somebody that knew what they were talking about and explained it to you.
Right.
Because I know I've watched a few of his videos and I'm a fan.
Yeah.
And I really, I incorporated some of that into how I work out because he's explaining, the direction of the muscle fibers, why we're doing this exercise. Exactly. Which I really liked.
Yeah, and so Jacob actually pays attention to stuff like that, but he's like you where he just read through stuff and acquired this knowledge because I used to watch him. I still do from time to time. I'll, if we're working out and stuff, and I'll ask myself, where did this guy, get his, how did he figure out that this is what he wants to do? And he's doing the same, basically the same thing I did in the beginning, except for he's a little bit more in depth like you are, right? When he starts reading about something, he really dives into the freaking rabbit hole to figure out this, that, and the other, where, for me, it's like, I just need Jeff. Just tell me what to do, man.
Just a little bit of direction and you're good to go.
Yeah. I'm not trying to read a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, I will.
Sure.
I will. And I have, but, I don't know why. It's just what I'm used to. That's what you actually, started doing things the way you do them now a long time ago. And you just kind of continue to collect all of this information, and as you've progressed, you figured out, where to go next, and just that's just what you've been doing the whole time, right?
For the most part, yeah. But I didn't necessarily start with a book first,
right?
I just went down into a little dingy dungeon with some worn out equipment and a couple of free weights and tossed them around until I hurt in places I never hurt before.
Yes.
And did that enough days in a row to where I actually, saw just a teeny tiny bit of change.
Right.
And that was when it started to get like, okay, well, how can I increase this change? How can I build on this change? How can I change other things? So on and so forth. To backtrack a little bit, my story with fitness came from a little bit of a different place. I mentioned earlier that when I was younger, I was a little fella. And even when I reached my current height, I essentially had to run around in circles in the shower to get wet. I spent most of my life, about 120, 125 pounds. And for those of you that have known me since before the change, a lot of that was hair. A lot of that weight was hair. No joke.
Yeah.
So anyway, I spent a good part of my young adult life, probably in an unhealthy way, kind of comparing myself to others.
Right.
And feeling like I wasn't capable of keeping the world from pushing me around and so on and so forth. And I used to run my mouth and get into scuffles and things like that. And, I did what I did, but, so some of my motivation, if I'm being honest, came from not wanting to be this little pipsqueak anymore.
Right.
Sure.
So that was part of it for me. And I know that may sound a little vain, but, that's where it started, right?
Yeah.
But the real catalyst to that was, I used to smoke pretty heavily as well. When I quit smoking, I was at a pack a day, and I had been at a pack a day for many, many years, which not only did that not help the inability to keep weight on, things like that. I've got the metabolism of a hummingbird. There's that's where my struggle is. There's constantly this 120 pound person inside of me that's just, like, no, don't let it start again.
Right.
Anyway, I smoked for many, many years and smoked heavily. There's nobody out there listening that doesn't understand smoking is bad for you. In fact, if you're looking to make a positive life change, that's fairly easy and fairly quick results, quit smoking.
Yeah.
Right.
Quit smoking. That's where things changed for me. And the part that not a lot of people know is that I had a really close friend, someone very close to me, in more ways that I'm going to get into right now. But this person was diagnosed with lung cancer, and I did my best to help them through that. This is somebody that didn't really have a whole lot of people in his life, and I spent a good portion of his last time on earth helping him through that. He died of lung cancer. This was a heavy smoker, and I found him when he died because I had been taking him to his appointments and things like that. And when I found him, after the initial shock of seeing a dead person, not only a dead person, but someone that was very close to me.
Right.
After the initial sting of that started to wear down, one of the first thoughts I had was, I am not going to do this anymore as far as the smoking goes.
Yeah.
And what that meant for me was like now, right? Like I'm not smoking anymore. Not that I didn't know they were bad for me before, but that was a little too close for comfort. I thought, right, I'm not going out like that. I'm just not doing it. Some other way would be a little more glamorous. I'm going to go out at some point anyways, but not like that, So I made a decision right then and there to quit smoking, and I formulated a plan. I stuck to the plan, and I quit smoking. What was that, back in maybe 2013?
Was it 20? Yeah, I think so. I think it was 2013. Yes.
Right. And so a couple months after I had my last cigarette, I started noticing something with my metabolism. It started working normally. And I started just packing on pounds in places I didn't necessarily want pounds.
Right.
I was happy to not, just be this beanpole anymore, but I was like, geez, now I'm going to have to start, again, it's this inner voice going, you can't be too skinny, but you don't want to have a big belly and all these things, which I understand is a different issue. But anyway, so I thought, well, maybe this is the time to start killing two birds with one stone. Number one, I can start putting on a little muscle like I've always wanted to, and get healthy. Like if I quit smoking, I might as well really do this thing. I might as well really get healthy. And so that's when I started, throwing around some free weights a little bit and learning about the best way to work each muscle. And and what a routine would look like and how often to switch up that routine, and you know, all these little tricks that people use to what they call fool your muscles into growth and shock them into growth and all this stuff. And the result was that within less than a year, probably right around a year, I had gone from just under 125 pounds to 170.
Wow.
Which is a lot of weight in a small amount of time. Now, you know, I did all the research on the supplements, and I was all in.
Yeah.
Right. I was all in.
Yeah.
I was not screwing around. And, yeah. And so I saw some results pretty quickly. But what happened in that time was I really just, there were some results I didn't anticipate, which were the mental thing, like how much better I felt, how much better I felt about myself, how much more discipline I had, how much, you know, just everything changed. Everything changed. You know, it was this social thing, like you said, Adrian. I you know, I was now doing these things with other people, other strangers. You know, it's if you think about it, it's a kind of a weird thing to do. Like, I'm going to go to this building, with these funny outfits on, and I'm going to dance around with these funny movements with a bunch of strangers, grunting and sweating, and you know, high-fiving each other and this and that, and then leave. It's just, it's a strange, it's a strange thing. But, you know, one of the other notable differences in the way that my body felt was the amount of energy that I had, and just the overall, like, mental shift that happened. And it wasn't just because I was seeing these results that I'd always wanted. It just did something to my brain chemistry, that I think is just, like, I wouldn't trade it for anything. And that's what's kept me going this whole time. I just don't want to give that up. You know, it's something that I crave. It's something that I look forward to. It's just really played a huge part in the last, you know, 5 years of my life.
Right.
You know, and I'm currently I weighed myself this morning. I'm at 184.
Nice.
So 120 pounds to 184 of, you know, decent, especially for my age, decent build, you know?
Yeah.
But as Adrian spoke of the pain points, mine has always just been the struggle to keep, like, that calorie surplus. And, you know, I just, my metabolism, I still, if I don't do what I'm doing for a couple of weeks, I mean, the pounds just disappear. It's, I mean, it's nice to know that if things ever went a little too far and I just put on too much weight,
You could just
Right.
But that's been my struggle's been from the other end. You know, I struggle to put on the weight, and, you know, I'm pretty consistent now. So it's, you know, I'm just kind of in a rhythm and have been for a while.
Yeah.
In the winter, I bulk up a little bit. You know, you're just not as active, I think. And, you know, so I use that as my bulking phase anyway, because it's just natural. You know, there's not a lot of sunlight. Your body kind of knows biologically, like, it's time to, I don't know if it's like a hibernation thing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we've talked about that. Like, I think it was number 2.
It was in number 2.
Where we talked about, you know, we're animals, just like the chipmunks and the squirrels.
Squirrels, yeah.
And, you know, trying to lose body fat in the winter is completely counterproductive. So just go with it. Bulk up. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when I take in extra calories and try to build up that calorie surplus, and then you can really cut that once spring hits. Or at least that's the idea, you know.
Yeah.
And I've been fairly successful at it for a couple of years now.
Yeah, dude, you're definitely inspiring. You're, you know, you're so consistent. You know, just seeing. I mean, you just have not stopped. You have not relented in, you know, your pursuit of being just beef, man. Which, dude, I've seen you, like, from beginning, dude. It's.
Well, I think I would be doing you a disservice if I didn't tell the listeners that you know, you either knowingly or unknowingly had a huge part in that, because I would have stayed in that little dungeon forever, right?
Oh, getting you out.
As far as the social aspect of it and showing me, you know, other stuff, I just stayed in that little concrete dungeon, just, you know, and I had long outgrown it. You know, there wasn't enough weight in the room, you know. I was, like, you know, filling milk jugs full of sand and like doing these, like, jail yard workouts. And, you know, Adrian, was like, man, come check out this gym with me. And it was funny because at the time, what was keeping me from doing that was that, you know, there's that, I don't know if it was a self-esteem thing or what, but it, you know, going to that weird building with all the other weird people, and, you know, I think it's something that honestly blocks a lot of people from from giving it a whirl. I see
Yeah.
people that are obviously new at the gym and they're, they just seem so timid and they don't know, I remember I didn't know how to use the equipment, and you don't want
Right.
to ask somebody because, you don't want to be that guy, like the little pencil guy that's just white as a ghost and,
Right.
rail thin. And how do I use this machine? And there's
Right.
some meathead that's just, acting like you're in his way and so on and so forth. It's just, I think that's a barricade for a lot of people. And it was for me in the beginning. And so kind of asking me to go with you and kind of pushing me to do that really, like that was, as far as, a changing point in my routine and stuff, that was, because I had kind of plateaued a little bit at that point. And I was happy with where I was at, but I don't know that there was going to be any more growth, mentally or physically, and until you kind of pushed me to go. And then, what happened after that, man. I was, texting you at 5 a.m, dude. I know it snowed 2 feet last night, but are we going to go to the gym, man? I'm going. Are you going to go?
Yeah, and that's that's another thing. We had a pretty decent discussion in episode number 2, and all of these things came up, right? Having someone else there that you go with, it's a game changer, right? Even though you're not doing the same stuff, because you and I nowadays we can go and work out together, right? Of course, more often than not, I get to the gym with you and I'm just frightened about what we're going to do.
It makes my heart swell when you talk like that. It really does.
I'm just not sure how this is going to go when I go to the gym with you, but I always get a really good workout, right? Yeah. And I've worked, to get stronger and stuff. So I'm not far behind you.
No, not at all.
But when, also when I go with, Aaron, and, this is part of what we're trying to, talk about. We're all kind of going for different things, right? Cause what I was craving, is a coach and this athlete life, a lifestyle, that was what was missing, cause that's how I had always trained like an athlete, right? So there's so many different things that I incorporate into my workouts. And Aaron he just discovered his love for, steady pace running. He's entered the Colfax Marathon twice now. He hasn't done the full marathon yet, but he's working up to it. And truth be told, there's a decent chance he'll be ready to do it, this coming year, at his current, pace.
It's a maniac.
But we'll see. It's crazy, dude. And I much respect, because I know what it's like to like take on that journey. We all do, because we did it last year.
Yeah. And I will never do it again.
Yeah. Some of us have figured out that we're never
People
doing
who
it
run
again.
for no reason are mentally disturbed.
Yeah, but you know what? All of us, dude, I think about it all the time, right? Like, why do we show up to this, basically like, torture chamber, right?
Right.
Just go there and laugh it up and, this hurts. Cool. Right. See you tomorrow, right?
Yeah, make fun of me when I puke on my shoe.
Oh, yeah, just straight up grape puke on the shoe. I mean, why do we show up, time and time again, to do that stuff, when it hurts? Because
the payoff, man, the payoff.
Exactly. It's one of those things. And that's how the best things in life are, right? It costs something, to get, something on the other side, right? So yeah, I think that's an interesting point you brought up, because you were definitely willing. I don't know how much longer you were going to do it, but you were just going to remain in the dungeon at the spot, man, at the dome. And you were almost exactly the same.
That's what's funny, is because that's the same thing that happened. You came back from vacation, and because we had talked about joining the gym. He's like, yeah, that's a great gym, because I just started working there. He's like, yeah, just around the corner. You should go up there and get you a membership. And I was like, yeah.
Said the same thing to me.
I'm going to do that. Yeah, sure.
My first question is, are there other people there?
Right, 'cause I don't know about that, yeah. And then he gets back, and he's like, you didn't join the gym? And I'm like, no. It's like, come on, and so we go up there, and then sure enough, it's kind of the same thing. I start working out there. I get to know the people.
It was a marathon. That's why we started there, right? Because we're going to train together.
Yes. Yeah, that was my first taste of running, was on the treadmill.
Yes.
And then running in real life. And yeah, and now I love it. Like, I get how, I don't think I could work out at home, because like you were saying, there's just something about being at the gym. Even if I had weights at home, which I've had in the past.
Yeah.
there's something about being at the gym, like I'm there for that purpose. And if I leave, then I'm done. Whereas if I'm just downstairs at the Phoenix, you know, I can like do a set and then wander upstairs and, you know, do something else. And, you know.
Well, it's funny. What kept me away in the beginning is what draws me to it now.
Right.
You know, there's been days where something came up when I was on my way and I couldn't go or whatever, you know, and, you know, I was grumpy about it and upset that I missed my, you know, my time at the gym, and the wife's like, well, you know, just go down to the basement and get you a little workout. And it's like, nah,
it's not the same thing.
It's not the same.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah. You could be sweating and like really feel like you exerted yourself, but there's a component that's missing.
Well, it's almost like the other people there, even though you don't know them or maybe don't talk to them,
right.
It like holds you to a certain standard, you know. It's like I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna mail it in front of these folks, you know?
Right, yeah.
But, you know, not that you necessarily care what these strangers think, but at the same time, you know, what you guys are doing there, it's like you kind of do.
Yeah,
you
it's
know?
a social component to it.
Which is also why I think it helps so much to you know, when we go work out together and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we hold each other accountable, and you know, I've had my best workouts with you guys.
Yeah, I think for me, one thing I'll say, just because I thought about it, is the reason why I like going with you also is because it'll give me a break in my regiment, right? Because I'll just be like, what are you doing? I'll just follow you.
Yeah.
You know, and I shock my body. It's, you know, it's like, yeah, cool, we're going to go do this and this. And I'm like, nope. We're just kind of switch it up, and I'm doing all these different things. And it's like, wait, what's going on?
And then on my end, it's like, Adrian's here, man. You can't. And don't let him see you weak, bro. Don't let him see you weak.
You can't
This
know.
better be the day you do a new personal best.
Right.
You know what I just realized is Jacob and I have never actually worked out together.
No.
You know,
we almost did that one time. We were
almost.
we were close. You almost came to join us.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do that.
Dude, so Aaron, tell us about your. So you talked a little bit about how you ended up in the gym. So it all started with like the marathon thing, right?
Well,
and so what's it been like after that? All right, so we're forced to actually cut this episode into 2 parts, which is becoming kind of a thing.
Yeah,
that's what happens when you get 3 amigos that work so closely together in a room. We were kind of aiming for an hour. We thought we were just gonna give like a power presentation.
The power hour.
Yeah, we missed the mark. Did you just say the power?
I did. I almost went televangelist for a second.
That's
Welcome to the Power Hour with our friends Jacob and Adrian. So it's going to be a little disjointed because we just cut right in. But what's cool is we're, going to present you with a really interesting second episode where we reveal the true secret on how to get big.
Big.
Giant.
Son.
Big.
All right, so thank you so much for listening.